Hey cousins, happy Thursday. So there is officially a ceasefire deal in Gaza brokered under Trump's 20-point plan, which mandates the release of 20 living hostages by Hamas within 72 hours of Israeli approval, followed by the return of 25 to 28 deceased hostages remains in later phases. In exchange, Israel will release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and partially withdraw its forces from Gaza, with a U.S.-led international force overseeing stabilization. The agreement aims to halt hostilities temporarily, but does not ensure Hamas's disarmament or a permanent resolution. Now, while I appreciate that the hostages are coming home finally after 2 years, I still find this deal bittersweet because, first of all, it doesn't eradicate Hamas, it just sits them down. History has taught us that a threat has to be uprooted and annihilated, not negotiated away. Y'all know the vibes. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Respectfully. So y'all know me, I gotta crash out just a little bit because I'm extremely frustrated by this situation. But again, I want to say praise be where it needs to be. I give all the flowers to President Donald Jaquan Trump for being able to get this deal, which I thought was still very far-fetched at this point. I'm very, very grateful that the hostages are being brought home. It is so important as well in Jewish culture, really to anyone, but especially in Judaism. It's extremely important to be able to give a proper burial to deceased remains. So I am very happy that some of these families will be able to at least get an element of closure. Now, it really blows my mind, though, when especially people from the ghetto, because a lot of ghetto people are wanting to just act like after this ceasefire that nothing ever happened in the first place and that everything is good now. And they're wanting the Gazans to be treated so well, considering that people in the hood, especially the Free Palestine BLM crowd, y'all hold grudges more than anybody. And as someone from Chirac, if you killed my cousin back in 97, forget about a truce because we are beefing forever. Okay? Beefing forever and ever and ever. But, you know, people are being delusional and acting like this ceasefire is going to be something that's permanent. I wish that it could be. I wish that that was something that, you know, would be a reality. I wish that we could sit here and just pretend like the ceasefire is going to mean something besides giving the Palestinians and Hamas time to regroup their arsenal. And I'm not just being pessimistic. You know, there just simply will be no peace there, biblically speaking, until the end of time in that region. These people have been beefing since David and Goliath, like 3,000 years ago, if not more, thousands of years ago. So all that to say, Hamas is still going to be around. And I wish, though, that it were realistic for the Palestinians to have their own region or to live in peace with the Jews and the Christians and the Israelis. But I don't know what biblical curse is on them, but there is just way too much radicalization in that community to maintain peace anywhere they go. So before I get into the terms of the ceasefire that are really bothering me, I want to give a shout out to H.R.H. Elliott for shedding light on this, just to show you the track record of Palestinians. So in 1992, Denmark allowed 321 refugees from Palestine to come over there, and a study followed them from 1992 until 2019. Of the 321 Palestinian refugees, 204 were convicted of a crime, 71 of them were jailed, and 176 of them ended up on welfare. So 64% became convicted criminals, and more than half of them are on welfare, or were on welfare. And then when they weren't committing crimes, they were out procreating. So the second generation, they had 999 children from the 321 original refugees. 337 of them committed a crime and were convicted of a crime. 132 of them were jailed. 372 of them ended up on welfare. So in the second generation, 34% were convicted of a crime and 34% conviction rate and 37% welfare rate. That is a mess. That is a whole mess over there. Their own justice minister, who resided over everything, stated that they should never have been let in. Therefore, I rest my case. They're problematic. And it's because their education system is built off of hatred and hating the people in front of them, rather than building themselves up, going and being productive people in society, and being able to lead with positivity everywhere. And I'm not hating on every single Palestinian. I'm just hating on their culture. I'm hating on the history of their culture that is proven over and over and over again. This is back in 1992. And from 1992 to 2019, they weren't doing anything positive. Yet y'all want those people to take over the entire nation of Israel? Egypt said no. Saudi Arabia said absolutely not. Iran said, you must be out your blood clot mind if you think that we're taking in the Palestinians. And Qatar said, girl, we don't even know those people. So it goes to show that even the Arab countries know that the Palestinians come with trouble. But we all have to sit here and pretend like they don't. And you guys want me to pretend like Israel is the bad guy? Come on. Their own cousins don't want to let them in the house. But y'all want to gaslight me and tell me that it takes $7,000 per post to get me to be a Zionist, allegedly. That's cute. Or maybe it's just because I look at the facts and I look at the situation that's happening in front of us. So again, this ceasefire deal is going to release 20 living hostages within 72 hours of approval. Hopefully by the end of the day, there's some kind of resolution that makes this ceasefire official, which would mean that around the 12th or the 13th, we are to start seeing the return of these hostages that are alive. But then you still have the 25 to 28 deceased hostages who are a part of that 45 to 48 hostage total. But for some reason, Hamas has not given a concrete date on when they're going to return these deceased bodies. Why are you holding on to deceased hostage remains? That is just disgusting. And that, again, is just to continue to put the knife in the back of the Israelis who literally just want to be able to give a proper burial and have closure for their loved ones that were kidnapped over 2 years ago. Okay. And for those of you who try to question, oh, is this America's business? Yes, it is. Because need I remind you, 2 of the deceased hostages that are to be returned, they're Americans. So this is very much America's business. And now, while I appreciate Trump's 20-point plan, I really do. I want to emphasize that. And that is just my personal opinion. Not PragerU is a 501c3 nonprofit. But my personal opinion, I think anybody that has a conscience is happy to see that these hostages are to be returned. But it's just not getting all the business done. You know, because first of all, I really don't like the premise of how this deal is really even being negotiated. I don't like negotiating with terrorists, but I think that it really says a lot. I want to hyper fixate on this for a second. So while Israel simply, like, the biggest thing that they want, the biggest thing that Israel is requesting is the return of hostages, both dead and alive. But on the Palestinian front, what they thought was going to be an even trade is they want to exchange the living hostages for 300 to 500 convicted terrorists. They want their criminals to be returned. Many of these criminals that are being returned, the hundreds of criminals that they want released, they are serving life sentences for murdering Israelis. So they want to allow their criminals and hood rats and terrorists, these musty terrorists, to be back on the street. That's the Palestinian priority. They want to flood the streets with killers who have already vowed to continue the jihad. Israel wants to reunite families and buried, murdered loved ones, and the Palestinians want their terrorists back. That tells the whole story. I rest my case on that. And you guys you asked me, why are you such a Zionist? Why are you on this side? Because I'm not going to side with evil. And you will never be able to gaslight me into thinking that the Palestinians are on the right side of this. And I know it's not every single Palestinian, but it's enough. It's enough of them. There's also the element of this that there's the failure to fully dismantle Hamas. I understand that Trump can only do one thing at a time, so I'm not blaming him for that. But the fact that it is not in the clause to completely abolish Hamas, even though, you know, certain commentators want to make it seem like they're a political organization or a resistance group, it's like, nope, they're quite literally terrorists. Yeah, they're terrorists that have overtaken that region and run it into the ground. And I'm supposed to sit here and be gaslighted about that because a certain form of Fox News personality now wants to say that it doesn't seem like they're terrorists. Crazy. That is insane. That is nuts. That is bonkers. But they're not being dismantled. So all that means is that this ceasefire, just like it has done before, is just going to give them more time to create more missiles, get more ammunition, to re-strategize. And so right when Israel's least expecting it again, just like on October 6th, they're just going to come back. Their entire life purpose is to eradicate Western society. This ceasefire is more like a timeout. So they can go and regroup and get some water, get hydrated, then come back and rain down hell again. It's insane. It's a great short-term solution, but it's not even close to a long-term solution. And now these insufficient guarantees for permanent security also have to be addressed. This multi-phase Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, it lacks any real commitment to a demilitarized zone for international enforcement. And need I remind you a little history? Back in 2005, when the Israelis were withdrawing from that region, all that led to was Hamas utilizing that same area to rain down hell on Israel for years after that. They went ballistic and rose to true power. The second the Israelis withdrew from that region, it gave them more territory closer to Israel to be able to live out all their jihadist dreams. And there's no real safe demilitarized zone. There's no buffer area. There's no degree of separation. They need a great wall like it's China. Is what they really need. We're talking about building a wall. We still need the wall with Mexico, but Israel needs one too. Because they have a wall, but it's nothing serious. They need something that is really going to hinder Hamas being able to just easily attack Israel. But again, instead, having no demilitarized zone, it just allows for Hamas to take over that area that Israelis are withdrawing from so that they can attack from a closer range. And then again, I want to reiterate how gross it is that these timelines seem so vague when it comes to releasing the hostages, because even the fact that we don't have a concrete date yet of like a deadline of when the Israeli and American hostages are getting returned, but let alone the ones that are deceased. So how long are they going to just delay this closure and delay this recovery? How long are they going to be able to keep these deceased bodies so that they can linger the suffering of Israelis that much more? So all that to say, it is for now a net positive. It's a very immediate solution, but it's so bittersweet because I just don't see this being viewed as a positive in retrospect when we open the history books 100 years later. I hope I'm wrong on that. I hope phase 2 ends up being, more concrete and having more of a resolution when it's all said and done. But as for now, I guess we can just end on the positive note of there are going to be innocent living people that are finally returned home to their families, and may God cover all of them. Baruch Hashem. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you, cousins, for tuning in for another episode of Respectfully. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon.